This is the West Michigan Sports Show, presented by Dasos Digital. Now, here's your host, Brandon Wirth.
Hello, good friends, and welcome into another edition of the West Michigan Sports Show, presented by Dasos Digital. Brandon Wirth joining you here. A new intro tag, a new episode awaits, and we are excited to get into it here today. Big thanks to you for tuning in, whether you're with us here live on News Radio WBRN, or if you are listening post-production on all of our great podcasting platforms. If you want a full list to be able to take this show and see where it is, and you can take it on the go with you, we got so many great platforms for you. You can log on to WBRN.com, and you can find the podcast tab, all of our great podcasts and shows in the network. You can find those there, as well as more information on where you can get those shows. And a lot of us here might be listening to the Local Sports Hour and might have got a little different taste earlier on with the Behind the Bulldogs segment. Obviously, had to make a little bit of an adjustment, but that show will be back and running next week. And so be on the lookout for that. All of you Ferris State sports fans, you love that show. And if you're not already a show listener, but you're a Ferris State fan, I mean, you're missing out, because we got all the deets, all the analytics, we got all the coaches, we got all the players. We are diving into everything Bulldog Athletics. So hang out there and join us for the full hour for all of your local sports coverage here in our airwaves map here at the Big Rapids Radio Network. So everywhere this show goes over the airwaves, you can catch all the coverage for high school sports, and especially the CSAA. Speaking of which, we have a great show for you here today. We'll be getting into a different kind of discussion. We've had a couple interviews. We've gotten a lot of score reports. Obviously, it's district week, state finals week for track and field, district week, that is, for baseball and softball. We have some girls soccer teams continuing their play, but we're going to cover all that next week, because we just have so much postseason going on this week, and a lot of it is this weekend, actually probably concluded or close to concluding as you're hearing this. And so with the schedules not quite aligning for me to go live over the weekend, we're going to cover all of that next week. So be on the lookout for that. All the scores, all the analytics, everything on the show, and you can catch up more. And if you want more as well on the baseball and softball postseason, you can check out the rundown, Big Country 100.9 on YouTube, as well as you can find it on Big Rapids Daily News on social media. The link and everything will be in there, so you can be up to date on everything happening with all of our great sports in the area. So there you go. Before we start the episode, we got to thank our great sponsors here, of course, as always. I promise I'll get through them quickly so we can get to the episode. Johnson's Automotive, the Schuberg Insurance Agency, Quality Car and Truck Repair, Alter Care Big Rapids, Parasaddle Sales and Service, Moto the Mecosta Osceola Transit Authority, and the Mecosta Osceola Career Center, as well as our primary sponsor, Dasos Digital, Real Business Solutions in the digital world. Big thanks to them for being a primary sponsor of this show. All right, now that that's out of the way, let's get into the episode. Those that are listening post-produced know what we are talking about, because you probably saw the title of this podcast, and which is why you decided to listen to it. For those over the airwaves, we are going to be talking about leadership today. What is it? What does it look like in sports? The goods and bads about it. And yes, I said goods and bads about it, as well as how you can be a better leader. And a lot of this is going to be geared towards sports, obviously, as a sports program. And I think really this is a topic that in its simplicity is overlooked. And that's not necessarily saying that leadership is simple. I'm saying the complete opposite. Is very complex. It is very multidimensional, and there can be a different kind of perspective about leadership in of itself. And basically today, this has kind of been a really big topic in my brain, as far as kind of looking back through a lot of the different leaders that I've grown up learning from, and all the great leaders and a lot of the insightful leaders. And I think there's a big misconception on truly what a leader is. And I think that's something that a lot of people probably really want to learn more about, so that they can better their leadership skills. Now, this is something that obviously, if you were to hear from me, I just graduated college. So you're probably thinking, what in the world does this kid know about leadership? He's 23 years old. You're right. I don't know as much about it, if anything about it, but I've learned from enough leaders, and I've learned from enough people that are really, really good with learning leadership, that I have a lot of insight, and I've gotten a lot of insight both at the high school level, the college level, and the professional level. And a lot of it is worth sharing, I think, for a lot of our great leaders out there, and for those that want to learn how to be great leaders. So it all starts with, what does leadership mean? What in of itself is leadership? Obviously, we can look at the Google definition, right? You can plug into your computer and say definition of leadership, and Oxford Dictionary will spit you out the phrase, the action of leading a group of people or an organization. Very simple, right? But we all know it's very much more complex than that. There's a lot of different factors that go within leadership. What does the perfect leader look like? What does a good leader look like? What does a bad leader look like? There's a lot of these misconceptions on what truly leadership is. And maybe we can't define perfectly what leadership is, but we know how we can better our leadership. And that's kind of the goal that I have here on this program. And hopefully it brings some insight to a lot of our listeners out there to be a better leader, not only in sports, but maybe take the sports application and apply it to life in of itself. But how is it enhanced in sport? Obviously, the number one leadership quality that you will see from individuals in sports, they're often from coaches. And one of those things is being able to motivate. Motivation is one of the biggest things that leaders do in the world of sport. Sports have an interesting schedule, and especially being able to talk to a lot of college athletes and even some professional athletes I've been grateful enough to speak to. We had actually one on last week's show, Brad Merrick. If you want to check out that interview, find that in the feed below wherever you get this podcast or on WBRN.com. If you're a live listener, that episode will be there for you to listen to. But when it comes to it, there's a lot of great leaders, and they all know how to motivate a team. Because when you look at the schedule of a season, especially in college and professional, like I mentioned, it is a very long, very drug out season, and it will last seemingly forever when you get to the next level. High school even does feel long because you're starting a lot of your sports almost a month and a half before, not official practices, but you're starting to gear up for competition in that sport. Usually a good give or take 30 to 45 to even 60 days ahead of time. Now, some elite athletes will even train year round in their sport. And I won't go into an argument today about specialized versus multi-sport athletes. I've already had that conversation before, and a lot of people know where I stand about it as a former multi-sport athlete. But when it comes down to motivation, it really is about how can you bring a team together for a common cause, because a lot of people play sports for a lot of different reasons, right? It might be to better themselves physically, whether it's staying in shape, whether it's doing something fun that involves staying active, or it might be, they might be accolade chasing. We can be honest and say that you want to try to get a certain number of points. You want to get a certain time in racing, a certain number of yards and touchdowns and home runs and wins on the wrestling, whatever it may be. There's always I want to do something in sport. I want to try to reach a goal and accomplish it. And you know what? I'm going to pick this sport and I'm going to go for this accolade because I think it's realistic, there's a lot of people that also do it because of the relationships that are driven from sport. A lot of the teammates that you're with, a lot of the people that you get to meet, compete against, it really keeps you in a great physical state of mind, being able to meet people, being able to interact, and being able to play both for and against a lot of your quote unquote friends. And that's the reason why sport and good coaches, especially good coaches as kind of the leadership figure that we common associate in the world of sports, they know how to motivate a lot of athletes to be able to do something for a common cause, whether it's a goal, whether it's a certain mission or vision that the team sees themselves in trying to visualize and get to that point, whether it's a state championship, whether it's a conference title, whether it's winning a certain tournament or a game, or if it's just to have fun at the end of the day, because if sports aren't fun, they're a job, and you don't necessarily have to work a job until later years in life. So you don't have to necessarily think of it that way. And that's one thing I've definitely learned. But the true meaning of leadership in sport is to motivate, but not only that, but motivate in the right ways. Now, I think this is where sometimes we get the goods and bads with leadership. A lot of the times we focus a lot on the outcome in sport, whether it's reaching that goal, winning a certain number of games or contests, or reaching a certain point on the timeline where you're feeling great about your season, or you have quote unquote had an excellent season, right? That's what every coach and athletes are chasing. But a lot of the times, sometimes we get so drawn out to that. And I've talked about this before, that we forget about the process, right? Sports in of itself is always a process, right? You're always trying to improve. You're always trying to tone your craft, no matter what it may be, tweak things, get better, improve, be the best that you possibly can be. However, sometimes when we get so focused on the outcome, that will really trump a lot of the feelings of fun and the feelings of enjoyment of sport kind of get erased, right? It'll kind of just push it away because you're solely focused on it. I've experienced at the college level, especially for somebody that is doing a sport year round, you're really not getting a lot of off time to think about other things than the sport that you're in, doing year-round sports, right? I was always thinking about running. I was always thinking about what's the best thing that I can do to improve myself moving forward, reach this time, make our team better. Always, always, always thinking about it. And now that I have time to reflect on it, there's a lot of times where I felt there was some really negative mental energy that I was spending, worried about a lot of the things that I couldn't control, right? How weather is during a workout, necessarily what the workout might be, if that's necessarily something that I don't feel might improve myself, even though it actually will. Wasting that mental energy trying to think about those things and not actually doing something that can improve myself. I'm more putting myself down than trying to push myself up just by my mental state, right? It's a hard thing to do, leadership in sport. It really is hard to motivate and get everybody on track. And there's a lot of positives and negatives within it. We got to take a break. We got to pay some bills, but I'm going to continue this conversation when we get back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to the West Michigan Sports Show here on News Radio, WBRN. Welcome back to the West Michigan Sports Show, presented by Bezos Digital. To recap, we've talked about what leadership is. We've talked about how it is applied in sport, a lot of the positives and negatives going within it, whether it's having a direction and motivation within a group or team to help better your emotional and physical health, or whether it's being too outcome focused or not being able to accept criticism is kind of a negative portion that can really put you in a bad position. But here in the second segment, I want to transition into the importance and the impact of sport, right? And we talked about athletes and a lot of them for different reasons going into sport. They want to do it for certain reasons, right? Whether it's relationships, whether it's goals, whether it's staying active, whatever it may be. Everybody has a different overall reason for joining sports, but they can all see leadership in different ways. And I think this is certainly important. There's been a lot of studies on the world of sports leadership by many different institutions at the college level, a lot of research, as well as a lot of professional organizations looking into data on a lot of these. And one of the ones that really stuck out to me was a study made by Cornell. This was back in 2019 by Eleanor Frankel is the name of the author. And a lot of the big things that you look at in sports have helped a lot of the people moving on into their professional lives, whether it's in business, whether it's in a hard trade, no matter what it may be. Sport has taught something about what you can do to improve yourself, be a better leader, and be a better even human being, you could go on and say, thanks to what sports can really give you, right? One of the things that was mentioned is motivation, which we covered in the first segment, right? Being able to navigate through the emotional journey and being able to amplify the morale of your group, whether it's a one-on-one with another individual, if you're kind of mentoring or coaching, or if it's really kind of managing a group of people, no matter what it may be. Motivating is obviously a very big key. Understanding feedback is another one, right? Interactions day to day will always be there in your lives, right? Whether it's over email, whether it's on a phone, whether it's texting, calling, no matter what it may be, or just interaction, intrapersonal and interpersonal interaction. There's always these things that you can improve to help understand what impactful feedback is, how to give it, how to receive it. That sometimes is the hardest part. I have my hand raised for those that probably have really kind of experienced this before, taking feedback that might seem critical at the time, but it makes an impact later on in life. You know, sometimes when your parents tell you, you got to eat the broccoli on the table, sometimes you think, this is dumb. Why are they forcing me to eat these gross trees that are on my dinner plate? This is not fair. But then you realize all the benefits that broccoli gives you, right? It's the impactful feedback and why they do some of these things to help lead you in the right direction, right? So how to receive that? Sports are obviously a very prominent place that this can happen. During in-game or in competition, the stress levels are high in an individual mind. You're thinking about all the external factors, the internal factors, how your body's feeling, where you're at in the game, if you're ahead, behind, you're thinking about all those things. So the mental stress is at level 10 plus, right? It is at an absolute high. So being able to navigate systematically how your brain is functioning, being able to evaluate it, being able to analyze it is super important. And a lot of the times when you ask for feedback on where you are at, and coaches will ask you, being able to learn how to give feedback and receive it is super important, right? Visualizing is really important as well. We talked about that in an episode here previously as well. There was an All-American team captain that was one that I was reading about at Williams College. Her name was Elizabeth Myget. And and she graduated in 2011 from Cornell, and she's now an assistant principal. And one of the biggest things that she said about what sport really gave her with her crewmates was because there was a lot of times it was there you find a lot of people in this cookie cutter type of mold or fit. Like there's, kind of not to me really kind of judgmental or mean, but there's a lot of average Joes in the world, right? There's a lot of average Joes. But when you look at a resume and see, they played sport, they were a captain, they were a leader on their team. They want those people. They want those people to go above and beyond to help the organization, help the person that they're trying to help. They want to know who that person is that can step up, be that person that can really lead and be that leadership in position and being able to apply that in a positive manner for the organization or whatever mission that they're trying to fulfill. And so she really did a good job explaining this, that she wouldn't have got hired without that experience. And the fact now that she's kind of looking back at it, there's a lot of times where she's working with the school and she's finding a lot of these kids are looking up to so many people, and she's starting to realize how important those qualities are. And I think that's something that's certainly cool. Leadership also involves followership. This is sometimes the hardest element to follow, right? Great leaders need great followers because many times a lot of people believe they are great leaders, right? They have the qualities. They think they have the qualities. They want to show the qualities. And there's certainly an aspect that realizes, we can't have 10 alpha males in a pride of lions because what will happen? They're going to devour each other. That's always what's going to happen. That will necessarily wreck your organization if you have too many people trying to lead. Knowing your role is important. Knowing how to be a great follower is just as, and arguably more important than being a great leader, because you can't have as many leaders as you do followers. So the biggest thing that definitely comes with the ability to be a good follower is being able to listen, being able to take critical feedback, and being able to apply it in a positive manner, because there is a lot of times where you might think you have good feedback and there's times that you don't actually have good feedback. And that happens. We're all human beings. We all make mistakes. We all give bad advice all the time. It happens all the time. But when it comes to sport, a lot of the times it can cost a lot of decisions, whether it's an outcome of a certain goal or an event or a match or a game, competitive event. A lot of times one decision might determine the impact of a game or a competition in that span of moment. But the reality is we all make mistakes, right? And being able to be a good follower is still being able to really apply the concept of, if my leader messes up, that's okay. I know they have the best for me, and I know the goal that they're chasing, and I know that they care for me, and I'm really all in on their vision. A lot of times that is. If you are on a sinking ship, a lot of people want to bail, start blaming. It's a really kind of a human nature, right? We want to be in the best case possible, physiologically, psychologically. So we're trying to put ourselves in the best position all the time. Optimization of where you are as a human is thought of every day of life, right? What is your best lunch meal that you're going to get? Is this the best thing for me? What's the best thing I should do after work? Should I be going out and having a good time for my morale? Or should I be staying home? Should I be resting up, trying to physically get better, right? We're always looking for the optimization, right? A lot of people have heard of the concept of fright, flight, or freeze, right? If we see something that is against what we are believing in that situation, that moment of time, we either want to run from it, we want to fight it head on, or we don't know what to do, and we're going to stay in that position until we know what to do, right? So those are the three, the fight, flight, and freeze concepts. But when it comes to followership, being able to understand your answer to what that leader is going to do is going to be, even if you see a negative, you keep going with that direction, right? Whatever the organization, whatever the team, whatever that group of people are trying to do, and you believe it, still sticking with it. That is a super important part, right? So how can you be a better leader? And this is something that I figured would be a great way to finish this episode. One is to be a good follower, right? A good follower will know how to be a good leader because you know both perspectives, right? You know exactly what it feels like to be a follower. And when you are a leader, then you'll have the experience to be able to know what a good follower looks like and how you can be a good leader to have good followers, right? It's important, right? Motivation in a positive manner, positive criticism in the sense of being constructive, but also being caring at the end of the day, right? We don't want to tear people down, have bad morale. That makes a really bad leader because obviously there's going to be expectations. And trust me when I say this, I've been on teams where I know and I understand where coaches want you to be. And it's a lot of times higher than you see yourself, right? right? Because they see the potential in you, and they might tear you down because they know you can get there, even though you might not think you can get there. They have the ability to project and put you in a position to put you in the most positive, highest potential outlook that you could possibly imagine. So when they get after you, it's only because of that reason. Maybe sometimes it's personal. We get it. Okay. It might be something that might be on external factors where you kind of have to take and give. And, it's one of those situations where it might be a little dicey. And I totally understand that. I've been in a couple myself, but it has to be a situation where you can understand exactly how to take that criticism and apply it positively and not let it tear you down in the sense of that they are attacking you, but that they are trying to help you get better, right? So being a good follower, accepting those criticisms for positive and being able to apply that in a good manner is important. The second thing for being a good leader is taking perspectives, right? Being able to see in other people's shoes is super important, right? I think that has got to be one of the biggest things when it comes to leadership, because if you don't see the other's perspectives, and this goes back a little bit to the first point of being a good follower makes you a good leader. If you don't understand what perspective that follower is coming from, and you don't understand what that teammate is going through, you don't understand what that person might be going through, you have to be able to help in a manner where you're just not thinking about how you can better the situation, but how you can make the situation better for them, right? It's not necessarily about trying to go in, be Clark Kent Superman and save the day once again by swooping in and doing this heroic act, because sometimes that doesn't help. You have to be able to sit back and say, okay, this is how I know I can make the situation better. Maybe it's just simply having a one-on-one with a teammate or a coach or whatever it may be. Knowing other perspectives is important. And the last thing is this: being comfortable with being uncomfortable. It is a hard concept that I'm still learning today, but if you're going to be a good leader, that means you have to speak out against something that might be going against your team, or speaking up to be able to correct something. Maybe you're the one that's applying that criticism in a positive way, saying, hey, I've noticed you've been doing this. Maybe this is something like you can do better, and handling that in the right manner. But you have to step out. There's going to be a lot of followers on a team. And sometimes if there is not a player-led individual, it might just kind of seem like it's a directive dictatorship, and it doesn't have to be that way. And that's super important. Being able to be uncomfortable is super important, right? Being comfortable is not going to get you growth. It's going to be getting out of your comfort zone and helping you individually. So I hope this talking really enjoyed you guys. I hope you guys got some insight. If you did, leave a comment on this post on Big Rapids Daily News. You can find that at Big Rapids Daily News on Facebook, Instagram, and X. And we'll see you here next week on the Local Sports Hour. You'll enjoy Ben Shapiro coming up next here on News Radio WBRN.